grab Corki banned again. We have figured out the Corki is not something that these teams have been able to counter.
So Corki gone, Ivern now gone as well. The Zig's still going to be removed from Gala. And the question remains, where does Kennen sit in the priority list now? Because Lily are gone there. Weibo have been quite happy to blind the Kennen. Obviously not like B1, but we'll see if they're still happy to go for that, because LNG will have their opportunity to respond.
Lily's gone as well. Ashe, quite high prio here, I think. You could look towards that Ashe. Last time it was first... Oh, okay, no, Lucian's up. Right, let's revise that. Lucian's up. It's probably a Lucian. Then we will see whether it's the Zeri or the Tristana on the other side. Lucian's been almost permaban throughout the entirety of playoffs. It's been really lane dominant. The culling gives you great power in that mid game as well. You do lose out in some late game scenarios to some AD carries. And of course, the Corki is very, very powerful, but that Lucian, very, very strong.
Lucian so often banned in playoffs because of the sheer power it brings that mid lane. Zika goes for the first Renekton of the series. It's a potent pick, and WeiWei sticks to that plan of utility junglers, of being the engage tool for the team, potentially setting up for Zika up in that top side, depending on the response in that top lane. I'll tell you what, Kennen can actually do okay against Renekton. I feel like this is finally a good Kennen angle.
I swear, if we get 3 blind pick Kennens and then when you actually have a good Kennen counter pick angle, we go towards the Ksante. Are you kidding me? Oh, get off it. Ksante locked in as the quote-unquote counter to Renekton. Look, we just see Kennen as the blind pick now. Look, it's not going to be here in this game, I suppose. You do get to play Ksante into Maokai, though. I will say in terms of the lane matchup, yes, Kennen, great counter into Maokai. Ksante is great against Maokai because you just look at his ultimate, you press W, you go unstoppable, and you allow your team to kind of hunker behind you while you get to W either forwards aggressively if you really want to turn things around, but typically just press that W and go backwards and deny Maokai that easy engage which he's known for.
Brand going to come through for Tarzan. So, we've been talking about how we've been mixing up the meta in this series. It's been a lot about the trees in the jungle, but game number 1 started with Tarzan having himself that Nidalee. It didn't work out. Now he goes for a Brand, another carry in that jungle. We did see the Aurora hover there. It is banned. It is not acceptable in playoffs. Yeah. Scout goes old school. He goes classic. He brings out his Azir.
This time last year, LNG using Scout on Azir was very, very special to watch. The way that he was, as soon as he would get Nash's Tooth and just go into a side lane, much like how LNG do nowadays with stuff like their AD carries, to destroy turrets, get a gold lead and carry the game was really, really special. I do think that Scout, compared to that year where he got so many MVPs, has not necessarily been carrying to the same degree, but it is still very, very potent here. And it does bring some magic damage out from a largely physical... Well, I mean, Maokai does bring some magic damage. It gives you something. But it gives you that ability to put all of that resource into the Azir and let him be a late-game carry.
And I just want to, for anyone that, you know, there's a lot of players that are known for Azir, right? You know, there's many, many Koreans that would come to mind, especially. Scout, not only is Azir his most played champion ever, with 120 professional games on the pick, 61% win rate over 120
That's
games.
Insane.
It's also almost double the amount of games on his next pick. His next pick is Rise to 67. He has almost double the amount of games of Azir of any other champion.
Yeah, tell me you played in Season 6 without telling me you played in Season 6.
Yeah, this guy's experience. Anyway, back to the bottom lane. There's 4 AD carries banned out here from both teams. I wonder where we end up going now.
Right, well Ezreal. Ezreal's the obvious one. So Ezreal's there. Now, do we get us... well, do we actually get a Kai'Sa now? We were saying, oh, I don't expect a Kai'Sa from Gala this series. I think, actually, it's fine here now. You want to be going towards a pick engage spot. I think that
Rell something else
really
mid. Okay, I'm cooking too hard.
I mean, yeah, maybe a bit much there, buddy. But I think Varus is not bad here either. Varus is gaining popularity. We've seen some teams like T1 pick it up again back over in the LCK. I was expecting something like a Kai'Sa, but the Varus very, very good now. If you lock in something like the Nautilus, allows you to have really good pick CC. That'll be something very, very different. Also, I'll say, Brand Varus is hellish for tanks because they have so much random mixed damage and percent HP between physical, because Varus tends to go for the Blade, the Ruin King, and of course Brand and Varus having their own magic damage in the kit as well. If someone gets hit with good enough CC, they get locked up by that Varus ult, and the Varus ult then spreads. You are sitting ducks for Brand too. I'm surprised we haven't seen this more, thinking about it. Leona gets locked in alongside it. LNG, if they stick with a front-to-back comp, it could be in real trouble here. That Brand Varus is no joke.
And you talk about the CC chain setup for the damage. Culling's no slouch at slaying one target.
Yep.
From Xiaohu in the mid lane. Hung will go for the Rell to finish this compound for LNG. And it feels like somewhat more standard, I guess, in general from both teams. However, you know, the Azir coming on through is a bit different. And also this Varus. I feel like Varus is one of these picks that we've seen banned more than we've seen it picked, really.
Varus should be picked more, I think, nowadays. I think the Varus is starting to come back up onto the table again. Strong laning phase, good anti-tank. And particularly because of the changes to some of the items being built onto him, and also the nerfs to first items for other AD carries. He's really, really strong once you get towards 2-3 items compared to some other AD carries now in the same kind of spot. If there's ever an item for opportunity from go towards Wit's End, really, really strong now as well. I doubt it'll be picked up in this game, but it's worth noting that for other games where it might be picked in this spot. I like the brand Varus. I love that into the Renekton, Rell, Maokai. If the engage is poor from LNG, that percent HP shred combo from that zero, the Varus brand, is going to end this game. So look for good engage angles from LNG. If they fluff their engage, if they just run down the front and center of the team fight, assume it's going to be okay, I don't think it's going to work out very well from them. That brand Varus is deadly as heck as WeiWei look to chase the series and bring us to Silver Scrapes.
It's Xiaohu versus Scout, two of the greatest mid laners of the region. 5 LPL titles and 3 MSI titles for Xiaohu. Scout with only 3 LPL and 1 MSI. But he brings out his old faithful in the Azir. On match point in his home arena, Scout looks to respond to Xiaohu and looks to keep LNG alive in this bracket. Weibo against the ropes. They've got to try and fight back.
欢迎来到英雄联盟。 敌军还有30秒到达战场，碾碎。
So, getting ourselves back onto the map. In the early games, we have seen a lot of value put onto these early wards being put into the enemy jungle. Weibo haven't got one down just yet, like they have done in previous games. Tarzan's used that very, very well. We'll be stacking up as 3, not able to get that much done here, though. So it's going to be basically unscouted starts from both teams.
So very sort of normal starts here for our junglers. No information either way. It's going to be a guessing game. There's a ward dropped in the river there by Tarzan as well, just in case any shenanigans should come through from WeiWei. Tarzan will have full information. And this does feel a bit more standard to the meta that we've seen across the course of this year. I'm curious how different this game is going to be compared to the rest of this series. And Zika going for a late scout onto the blue buff, sees it's not started. Could be false information for his team, honestly, because Tarzan started on his wolves.
Yeah, so they don't know that well, they know he's not starting on blue buff, but they don't know which side he's starting on. This is the thing. This kind of information is so important, folks. Because look, think back to the skirmishes we've had previously and how much value we've put on Tarzan and WeiWei, the 2 junglers which were traded teams coming into this year. It's not just a narrative. They're really important to their team. And if you give them a good... I mean, Xiaohu, buddy, come on. So mean of him. But that early jungle start is really, really important for both of these teams. As Xiaohu makes his presence known on the Lucian mid, which he is so, so powerful at. One of the first players ever to play this pick back in 2016 MSI. He was solo killing Faker on it back at that tournament. And he took it to the top lane after that point. It is a real specialty of his.
It certainly is. And it's a phenomenal pick for playing in those side lanes that we've been talking about all series long. Scout gets himself a shield, but this is a brutal start to the lane from Xiaohu. Scout's gone for the old scaling classic of that Azir, but the thing about scaling picks is you've got to get later on in the game, you've got to get more abilities before you can really fight back.
And there are ways you can lane against that Lucian. Azir is not a bad matchup into the Lucian if you can end up guessing where he's going to dash. Because if you put your soldiers wrong and then Lucian dashes out of your soldier range, you absolutely lose a trade. If you get him to dash into a soldier and you get an extra 2-3 autos or whatever, then you can actually start getting some lane presence. I think it's a real testament to Xiaohu and his mastery of this pick over so many years that he's managed to get so many good laning phases over this summer. It has been kind of the pick which stabilized him. He was, as we said, really falling off across this year. We were wondering whether Xiaohu, whether he's done, whether he was dusted, whether we would never see him on form again, but I think the Lucian really helped him gain some of that confidence back and be a real force in Weibo later into summer.
And I do feel like these 2 players often mirror each other, because Scout felt like at the start of this year he was having a really tough time. It didn't feel like he was on form. It felt like both of them slumped
Oh
at
dear.
a similar time. Xiaohu caught though and knocked straight into Hung's lance. Scout's going to be set up here for potentially first blood flash over the wall. Scout looking to chase. The stun is there. The laning phase looked good, but Scout's got buddies.
The dopamine of the first few levels of the game doesn't always last. Weibo, they weren't there to support this trade coming in. They're going onto the river now.
Response, but the Seer goes wide. WeiWei walks away with his life. So does Hung. It's not enough from Weibo.
So, first blood goes onto the Azir, and we said, yeah, it takes a little while sometimes for Azir to really get a leg over that Lucian matchup if he ever does in a game. But right there, this is one of the things about the mid-jungle kind of pairing. You got to be on the same page. If you're going to be shoving in like a lunatic early, you need to have someone there to respond to you. And LNG, they're the ones which managed to strike first. LNG, though, because they put a lot into that mid lane and they moved Hung up there as well, means that Gala's zoned off here. So Weibo at least gets something back.
Gala being kept away from this wave. Cannon missed, but he should be able to pick up most of this minion wave. No dive opportunity, really. The side of Weibo. So Gala will, I mean, he'll keep himself relatively close. He's 15 CS down before that wave. I expect at least 5 or 6 down after.
So Xiaohu thinks that he's going towards strong side because his brand is on that side, but bot lane's been shoved in, and he's not got anyone close to river, and Brand is not even close to his lane. No, just because your jungler is on one side of the map doesn't mean that they can respond to you in time. He's closer towards his progs than he was towards mid lane. Xiaohu just over pushing a bit. He has done this occasionally too. It has been a stabilizing pick. It's a great pick for him mechanically. He's just not been connected with his team.
WeiWei's just going to stay in the mid lane. Scout gets the shield. It's not enough. It's not enough against Xiaohu. Finds the solo kill. 2v1.
Alright, so if Xiaohu's not going to have teammates in his lane, he'll just do it all by himself. Gets one back at least. Good damage coming through for him, and also buys time for Tarzan to get onto this top scuttle as well. WeiWei has to respond in mid lane again. I guess Xiaohu, with drawing so much pressure to mid lane, gives a slight advantage bot lane, gives a slight advantage in mid lane as well. That is something he has gained for his team, as well as that kill he just got back.
That kill is enough to equalize the matchup. Obviously has that CS lead. I mean, I'm surprised quite how much damage he was able to squeeze out here. Looks like Scout's fairly safe, but just
Hang on a second.
double shot dash,
Yeah.
double shot piercing light, double shot. And with the minions' help, it's plenty.
Yeah, there's 9 minions! There's 9 minions there, and it's only level 4. Like, those are going to be doing the same amount of damage as another champion. The minion wave is effectively making that a 2v2, and Scout tanks all of them.
Beautiful stuff from Xiaohu. And just after, the laning phase starts beautifully for him, and then Weibo respond with a 3-man play towards mid lane. And then Xiaohu pulls that out 2v1. He responds to this pressure from LNG, and it's beautiful to witness.
Yeah. First death, I think you could probably criticize Xiaohu for. That second one, though, gets a lot of value out of it. And as we said, you know, Lucian is very much someone who does kind of want to be ahead of the game. He's not right now. That is a problem. But he has gained something for his team elsewhere with the way that bot lane managed to get that brief amount of pressure there. And, of course, the top side into the grubs as well. Weibo now have those 3 grubs, which will very much help the mid-game side lanes, which have been the story of this series for most of the games that we've seen so far. I want to see if Weibo can capitalize on that later with the second squad of grubs.
Xiaohu showing Scout what 8 trophies feels like as he finds his solo kill in the mid lane. But it's a quiet...
You just had to mention that, huh?
I just had to. I couldn't not. It's a fairly quiet start to the game, really. And this has sort of been the theme of the series. Drake started by Tarzan on this bottom side. They already got the first 3 grubs of the game as well. This would be both neutrals to start off for Weibo, which is a pretty fantastic start for them. Scout's moving over. Gala's here as well. WeiWei is trying to get here as fast as he can, but Tarzan just dying to the Drake in the meantime. He does get that dragon. Scout gets out with his life. There's an ult though onto Hung, and WeiWei locked up as well. 2 for light. Weibo will be happy with that one.
They absolutely will be. Getting Varus some extra gold too means that he can be a bit more oppressive heading into mid-game as well. LNG lose the dragon. I think even Chris are going to be able to stop the back here. This is nice. Weibo have 3 grubs. Scout has to recall. As long as he lives, that could be... Yeah, that's the problem there. It's great because it allows Xiaohu to hit tower. It's not great because you died.
I don't think one plate is going to be equal to the 300 gold you just gave over to Gala. Gala very happy with a bonus little pickup there, and it is going to be 2-0-0 for both of our AD carries down on the bottom side of the map. And this is turning into quite an interesting game. Very back and forth. And again, a little bit messy from both teams.
It is, but I will say it's not a clear advantage just yet. And that's the big thing. We have seen clear Weibo advantages opening up in most of these games. I am surprised that Tarzan lives through to this long. Somehow he gets away with this, with the smite after that point. Damage coming through from Chris and Xiaohu onto Scout means that at least Azir doesn't add into this. We like getting 2 kills though. Really, really nice for him. We talked about how the Varus brand later into the game is going to be disgusting. Keep your eyes on that combo. If they can manage to get that anti-tank damage onto the single person into the front of the fight, it's not going to be pretty, folks. So LNG do need to still be aware of that, and it gets worse with the gold you've just given him.
I've got to say, at the start of the year, when Lethal Tempo was removed, I did not think on-hit Varus was going to be making a showing in top 4 of LPL Summer Playoffs. But here we are, and like with 2 kills already, it's such a fantastic start. And again, back to your point previously of, Rise in the previous game, scaling champions get so much value out of early gold. Varus, one of those champions that when you get 2 and 3 items, you're just such an absolute monster. So getting that gold early, so valuable on the Varus. The blue buff will reset. Tempted invade here from Tarzan and Chris. WeiWei instead going to perhaps look towards that bottom lane, but can't really find an angle, just has to settle for the Grom.
So, remember, at this point, if Light hits an ult within Tarzan's damage range, someone's getting burned alive. That is not going to be very pretty. Grobs up in 20 seconds. Weibo would like to get their hands on that. Might be a bit difficult, given how Zika's been pushing in that top side. He hasn't got himself necessarily... I don't know when the last time he got a recall in. Probably not that recently. He's going to do that now. If Weibo can get towards multiple Grubs, and they can get people into side lanes, whether that's the Varus or the Lucian, they're very, very happy with that. You know, we've talked about that to no end. Zika has just got his first item, though. If he can get towards that top side in time, I don't know if Weibo really want to be tussling with a one-item Renekton. It's such a big power spike at level 9. That max rank Q, the Eclipse, it is quite risky. They might just give that up.
Gala moves mid lane. Scout now. I mean, it begins. It begins for Scout. He's in his side lane.
Yes, he's got Dash to soothe his ear. Yeah. Batter down the hatches.
Scout. He's in his lane. He's moisturized. He's flourishing. All of that good stuff. Unbothered, unfazed. Yeah. He's got his Wit's End and it's happy to... Sorry, Nash's... I don't know what it is. Wit's End and Nash's Tooth are just one item in my head. I can't ever get the names right. It's been years at this point. Gala forced to flash in the mid lane by Xiaohu. Has a calling over the wall as well as pretty good, and Xiaohu dives in to finish his old teammate. They won MSIs together, but it's not enough to save him. And Crisp has been completely abandoned by his mid laner. Maybe he can execute when the roots are coming in. There's nowhere to go. Drops the ward, at least it's something to answer for his death.
I was actually wondering if he should just literally just stay there and take a while to die. He's going to take a while to die anyway. Alright, Gala's going to head on over. Wait, but what are they doing with this time? The thing is, your time is really valuable as a jungler. Crisp is taking such an obnoxiously long amount to go down. It means that Tarzan gets to go towards top side. Tarzan might actually... Guys, Tarzan's ganking top. This could lead to something up here.
That was absolutely absurd. Crisp survived so long. And now, Zika... in a 2v1, Seer goes wide, there's a burn there. And Light, I guess, already used Chain of Corruption earlier in the play.
And he did. So, Light uses the cleanse as well. I was wondering whether Tarzan probably should have just gone towards the Grubs at that point. LG took one of them. They should be able to get themselves at least 4 for the Might's buff. 5 might be a bit difficult. Might be WeiWei coming over in time for a smite beyond that point. We'll see exactly how that works out. First one goes down. Tarzan still has smite, likely 5. 5
Grubs for Weibo. Hung jumps in to try and punish it. But the flash comes through, and now Crisp is here. He's back for more once again as WeiWei. Chased down, it's a good Magna Storm from Hunk, but no follow-up so far. Gala has to be the one to carry, but Zika jumps into the mix and gets one for himself. Gala forced away, Weibo with another fight.
Weibo get themselves a fight, and they get the Grubs too. So that's going to be really big to see if they can now leverage that Grubs advantage to start tearing through these towers. And also we can see how much value Xiaohu is getting out of this Lucian pick. His Lucian is really, really good in these skirmishes. He overpushed in the early lane, and he was punished for that, but you're not going to doubt his ability to output damage if you give him the room to do so. LNG, I think it's a big worry for them now that they couldn't use that one-item Renekton on that top side of the map early enough. Zika, great Rise game coming before this point, but he's not been able to get a lead at all now at this point. He's actually behind in gold to breathe. That's quite worrying. Renekton does really need a lead to start carrying that into mid-game to team fight.
It was so close to enough as well in that fight. It felt like if People have just been slightly more clustered. Maybe that's a huge Renekton fight, but it was such a spread out skirmish that his Q gets barely any sustain off. Does find the 1 kill for himself, but I don't know if one's really enough in that kind of situation. And it does mean that Weibo have built themselves just a tiny lead, 1,000 gold, but it's the 5 grubs I'm more worried about for the side of LNG. It's 5 grubs on a Lucian. We know how good at side laning Xiaohu is. That is a dangerous prospect.
That it is. So, LNG, can they get themselves into their own comfort zone? Make things a little bit more formulaic, stop Weibo from just pushing in across the board and forcing them to respond to stuff. Dragon's now up, they could maybe use that to pull Weibo away from these towers, but if Weibo want to give it up and can get onto towers, they have that option too. 5 grubs gives you that power.
Xiaohu, oh, actually going to use the culling onto Scout there. Good little chunk of damage there. Scout will even lose a couple of minions for the attempted engage. As Tarzan clears vision, this will be Drake potentially for Weibo, or at least an attempt.
I think because Xiaohu had no flash, Scout did. Scout was wondering whether he could shunt him back into his teammates, couldn't quite get that. Breathe pulls the all out.
Zika's already losing trades against Ksante pretty early on into this one. Level 11 for Breathe, that's a Q3, that's Zika, so chunked to Breathe! He makes it look easy in the top lane, absolutely smashes Zika.
Ksante breathes in deep and Zika falls down, can't match him there, all out, takes him out, and suddenly Zika, you know, this is the early game Renekton. This was the 1-item spike that LNG were meant to be playing around the top side. It is not going to be easy to play from even, and now potentially even just behind the top lane of Weibo. That's a big problem. Weibo get themselves the second dragon. They use that 5 grubs to get this tower in the bot lane, and suddenly that 1 kill in the top lane destabilizes the map for LNG. That is absolutely the opposite of what they wanted. They can't even stick around to get themselves the Herald on top side. Weibo open up a huge lead, and this is typically even something they can accelerate against LNG. LNG need to be afraid of these advantages being opened up.
And one of the important advantages we've not talked about that much is Tarzan consistently invading on this bottom side. It's like a 40 CS gap in the jungle for Tarzan. He grabs that blue buff again. WeiWei a level down in that matchup as well. Like, this is a big lead for Tarzan. It doesn't look as big as maybe some of these laners, but it's substantial.
We saw this in a couple of the matches in the last round when we saw LNG versus Top Esports and Weibo versus BLG as well, and a couple of series before that. If you are playing the utility like the Maokai into the carry, you can just get blown out in terms of that farm advantage. Throughout a lot of this year, we have learned that a farm advantage on a carry jungler can be a win condition in itself. You know, Tarzan against his old team, WeiWei the same thing. These junglers just switch against each other. It does feel nice to keep turning back to this jungle matchup because it has that extra emotive oomph to it. And Tarzan is looking mighty pretty on this brand now with a huge amount of ability to take over this game. Going back to that top lane 1v1. This is a powerful Renekton, but Breathe just hits everything.
Really nice Q3 there, sort of in the wrong direction, but knocks it backwards. Hits another 3. I mean, Breathe just beautiful bit of play to finish the job. I don't know why Zika won't back into him there.
Yeah, I think he was looking maybe for the empowered Q. Is coming off a cooldown. A lot of the way that you play these extended trades with the Renekton are about getting that healing through, but didn't judge the cooldowns right. Breathe absolutely did. Massacres it on the top side.
And Breathe, a player that's realistically not his greatest year ever. Was criticised earlier on in the year for really being able to follow through on the carries. He's not on a carry today though. Has been earlier on in the series. These cannon games didn't really work out for Weibo, but it's Ksante looking good so far. Feeling practiced, feeling ready to bring that into the team fights. And now what I was talking about was a 1,000 gold lead not too long ago for Weibo has extended to 3. And Xiaohu has just had so much time in this side lane to keep slamming these minion waves in. Herald in the top side, that will be a tower.
It's gonna get worse, Joe, because you got 5 grubs and a Herald. They are accelerating buffs. They're win harder buffs. You get the grubs and you hit towers, it really starts making a difference. It's not as easy to play around as the Herald. LNG looking to death push, maybe Scout. Does have the flash, does have a result. We might look for a big sweep.
Here come the roots, and in they go. Hung with a Magnet Storm. Can Scout get into the action? True Shot Barrage is fantastic, and it's 2 for LNG, but there's the explosion. Tarzan's going to go down as well. LNG find their moment. They punish over aggression.
Weibo go too far, they don't check their corners and LNG are hiding in them. They get themselves a huge play, take down 3 for 1, and they stop the push coming through in the top side. That's important. It'll start to curtail Weibo's pressure on the map a little bit. Also, with Scout being left alone in this top side, maybe he gets access to a tower beyond this point as well. Big reprieve for LNG. This was about the latest they could have left it to. I think you leave it a couple more minutes and those towers start falling even harder. I think that LNG might have found it very, very hard to find a similar opportunity.
And so crucial, the timing of it, denying this snowball, finding themselves their own opportunity hunt. Such a great engage here on the Rell.
Tarzan and Light, they're on the position to try and get that percent damage through, but they can't stand and fight for the time that they need to right now. They get the 1 kill back, but Zika forces them to turn tail and go in a different direction. The Renekton does actually get some value here. We were just saying that, hey, it's quite hard to play the Renekton at this point in the game. When you're even in gold, at least you get something out of the kind of the tail end of his power spike.
Tense in the LNG coaching room there. You can see that even with
I mean, they just want it to be over, don't they? They don't want this go to 5.
They go to 1 fight, but 1 fight is not really enough to turn the game around. Still 2,500 is the lead for Weibo. But more importantly, where the items are is important. Xiaohu and Light both on 2 items on these carries. And that is a terrifying thing to go up against. With Drake spawning, it's Infernal Soul this game as well. And that'll be soul point for Weibo.
Easily done. So LNG, they need to be really careful of those item spikes you just said on these 80 carries, because if LNG don't force a second angle for Weibo to respect, whether that is Scout on a flank looking for a sweep, or Zika coming in for a flank teleport, then the carries of Weibo with these items will shred the front line. You are not tanky enough as the Leona and the Maokai to walk into Brand, into Lucian, and into the Varus, especially if those ultimates get high value. So LNG, the next time they square up for a fight, check how many angles they're using. If they get onto the carries first, that's great. It's a little bit different that way if it's more skirmish than a full team fight. But as soon as you get like the majority of people across the map involved in a fight, ask who is disrupting the backline from Weibo. If it's only a single direction, it's probably a Weibo win.
Weibo, they want to go to 5. They want to take us to Silver Scrapes. I think everyone at home, aside from LNG fans, wants them to take us to Silver Scrapes as well. I feel in the previous round, we were robbed a little bit. We had some very fast series in our top 4 so far. I want to get back to the good old 5-game bangers that we're so used to here in LPL playoffs. It feels like perhaps Weibo have the tools necessary to make that happen. But I'm just so happy to see Tarzan and Xiaohu having such a great end to their year, considering how hard of a year it's been, especially for Xiaohu. With Breathe going back onto a tank in that top side, it does feel like a recipe for success for them. However, Zika caught out in that top side. Will have a minion wave to hide behind, so no culling available for Xiaohu.
Yeah, I was wondering if that fight would last long enough for there to be a big rotation over from LNG. Not going to be the case just there. You saw a lot of people moving up LNG. Very quick to move multiple people to one lane. Typically, they're very good at doing that when they're ahead. It's much harder to do that when you're behind. Thing is, though, now you've just lost that push and you've lost a lot of vision here. Baron's going to get burned down. Are we just flipping this? Are we feeling like burgers today?
It worked for him earlier on in the series. I'm not sure I agree with it, but here we go. WeiWei over the wall.
Here we go.
5k on it. Breathe on a flank here. Just trying to threaten, trying to keep them away. WeiWei doesn't want to get into the pit just yet. It's still 5k on the Baron here. DPS stopped. Weibo peel away. TP acquired. But can they actually survive the fight? The health bars are so low for Weibo. Chain of Corruption is perfect from Light to disengage.
That's not really how you want to be cooking that play, Weibo. They don't choose an option between finishing the Baron and go looking for the fight. They didn't want to go for the flip. I understand that, but if you're going to do that, if you're not going to go for the flip, you've got to find a fight afterwards. They wait too long, they tank the Baron and LNG, get themselves another reprieve. Weibo, they're not necessarily choking LNG out. Every time they fail a play like this, it allows LNG to push in a wave that maybe they shouldn't have been able to. Get some extra gold onto someone that they shouldn't have been there.
I mean, ultimately, what happens there is Weibo just concede control of that river, right? They had complete control of Baron. They had so much control, they felt the need to start the Baron. And yet, at the end of the play, it's LNG, as you say, pushing those waves in, getting pressure out, and importantly, laying down some vision, clearing some of the Weibo vision. But I don't think we're going to be seeing another attempt on this Baron anytime soon, because Infernal Soul is coming up in 2 minutes' time. And
I wish I had the same faith as you, man. Like, look, logically, yes, but it's still Weibo. Like, lest we forget, it has been less of a feature of their gameplay, but this team is still just as weird as they were before, folks. Occasionally, they do just throw a random play to see if it works. They do that every so often. It scares me, Joe. Yeah,
it scares me too. I'm surprised the win percentage is so Weibo favored. Honestly, 66% for them. They're only 3,000 gold up at this point. Not even that. Clearly, the stats, the aggregate solo queue stats favor this composition. I mean, Brand is a bit of a terror later on into the game. There's no two ways about it. Close to a second item there for Tarzan as well.
I was wondering whether Weibo might... I know it would have been a bad move, but I was wondering whether they would start Baron again to try and force Zuka's TP. Because we were saying, what are the ways that LNG win team fights? And with a minute to Dragon, keep an eye on that too. Getting a second angle onto the carries, forcing Varus not to fire in one direction, but then retreat in another. Deal with the Renekton on a flank, scout Azir on a flank as well. You get rid of Zuka's TP, it makes it much harder for LNG to do that, but he will have that potentially available for another big fight. See whether LNG can get themselves those wards in place. As Xiaohu actually ulted the top wave for quick prio, goes back, gets himself that fire cannon, gets himself back on the map.
3-item spike for Xiaohu. That's a scary moment for anyone who finds themselves in a 1v1 against that Lucian. Scout close to those 3 items himself. Can't quite finish off his Void Staff there. Crisp's gonna face check. Gala can't quite find the damage to punish, and that will be vision cleared. Drake up in 5 seconds time. This would be Infernal Soul for Weibo in a composition that is all about that damage. It's not something LNG can afford to lose, and they know it. They start onto Breathe as Crisp is chunked as well. Good CC chain, but they don't have that much damage just yet. Breathe gets onto Gala in the mix of 4 people. Gala still chunked and goes down. What is that from Breathe? Zika trying to threaten on the top side of the fight as it's now a 4v4. LNG need this Drake. They have to take this objective. But Weibo, they don't want to let them. As they continue to tussle for this one. WeiWei tanking the Drake. Look at the combo onto the Azir, but he turns golden. Holding the arrow is light, but dodged by Scout. 3k on the Drake as WeiWei still in the scene. Zika jumps into the action, and the Drake is secured. Zika goes down as Tarzan turns golden. Scout still going, but obliterated by Tarzan, and Xiaohu finding more.
The kills go to Weibo, but they don't get themselves that soul. Baron is on the table, but I don't think the HP bars are there from Weibo to finish that one off. LNG, I think they just about got what they came for. They don't lose enough to lose the Baron, but they do. Well, actually, I say that teleport's coming in. Call me a liar. Of course, they have Breathe. Teleports in. He's tanky enough. That could change everything, though. Tarzan just about lives. LNG, they now need to respond to the Baron.
That would have been something else if it killed from Gala. It's a great shot for the True Shot Barrage. It's not good enough to kill Tarzan.
WeiWei has no flash, he can't get over.
WeiWei, no flash. Oh my god, it's gone. It's gone. It's Baron for Weibo, and LNG have to respond now. Roots come on through. Breathe takes a little chunk from Gala, but Gala don't want to get too close again. We saw what happened last time. Breathe dashes to his teammates. I think Weibo pretty much just got away with this one scot-free, culling out from Xiaohu. Not a single pick here. Tarzan now aggressed upon, but Hun can't close the gap. Weibo, they get away with it without a single casualty.
They do. They get away with absolute murder. Murder of LNG around the Dragon, and then the Baron itself as well. So a bit of wildlife thrown in for variety. LNG, they did get themselves that Dragon, but, I mean, folks, this is just a certified Ksante moment. Like, look at this. What are you supposed to do against this champion? There are 4 people here trying to save the AD carry. How are you allowed to do this?
It's the fact
what
that
is this?
The auto
he
goes
flashes away from the auto.
Flash as well. Oh my days, Gala just getting absolutely smiffed on by Breathe. That's been nerfed a lot of times. It's still pretty damn
I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. Scout escapes the arrow there as well. Zuka actually gets a really good play into the backline, which ends up getting some damage down, but it's just kind of beyond the Renekton power spike. It's much harder to get these kills than in the past. And fantastic stasis from start. Tarzan keeps him alive as well. Gosh, the late game Baron damage, we have seen that all year, and it still catches me off guard as well. So Weibo with the Baron buff, is that enough to now push in across the map and put this to a 5-game series? Might take a little bit more than that Baron, but it might put them in enough into the lead to secure it.
So good to see Breathe having such a good game on this Ksante, going back to what's worked for them. And it looks like it might just work today as well. 11-11 on the scoreboard, but Weibo very much in control. And now with the Baron for another minute, they look to break down the final tier 2 of LNG's base. And LNG, we talked about their scaling. Well, they've got 3 items on Azir, on Ezreal. I feel like that clock is ticking down. It's sort of now or never.
So, LNG, they do have some playmaking potential. We've never really seen Scout be able to get into the backline either or do the damage he needs to. God, he's actually taking so much damage to the cannon minions too. So he needs to be quite careful. Yes, Azir has not really been the story of this game, despite getting that kill very, very early on into the game. Really has been Xiaohu who on this Lucian, which of course is a massive comfort pick for him, just like Azir is for Scout. That's taken over this game.
I feel like Scout needs to grab himself a Will of the Ancients, get a bit of sustain on that Azir.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, let's just throw in a Hextech Gunblade while we're at it. What else is there?
DFG maybe, DFG Azir. Doesn't sound that good to be honest, but...
Look, as someone who started playing during the heyday of Season 4 DFG Ari, I missed that item. It wasn't fair, but that's okay. I enjoyed myself, and everyone else should have just accepted that as the way the game should have been played.
I loved playing DFG Veigar, because you just literally like DFG
that was back when Veigar,
anyone's dead.
He did damage based on your AP at that point, so he was genuinely anti-mage. If you had 1000 AP, that's actually just stuff he uses against you. We don't really get that anymore. I understand, because it means that when you don't have any AP, it feels not great. But hey, for those brief moments where you saw a really fed mage, you are genuinely true counterpicking them.
Yeah. I feel like if that mechanic was still in the game, Veigar would just be like a permanent support pick, probably, to deny mages, and assuming mages were meta anyway. Crisp trying to maintain control for Weibo, as he's been so tenacious in this series. He's died a few times this game, but Crisp, honestly, the way that he positions on the map is totally fearless. He has no qualms putting his life on the line for the squad.
So we'll call him Tenacious C. He's not the real thing, he's just a tribute, but we'll see exactly how much he can do in this game with the engaged potential he's got.
I don't know, I'd say he was the real thing back in 2019, that's for sure. Great to see him back in form. Great to see him doing good things on this Leona. Solar Flare to WeiWei, but no follow-up from the rest of the gang. Drake coming up in 5 seconds once again.
Sucker on the flank. As he's seen, he is now. He needs to get out of there. He can't 1v2 this. Remember, Varus, Brand, if they get themselves the damage onto the tanks, it is absolutely disgusting. Zucker needs to threaten those two champions in that combo. Make sure they can't cleanly kill someone. On the end of it, LNG, they're looking to disrupt, but right now it's a little bit difficult. Zucker's getting pushed away. Breeze starting to shuffle in that mid wave.
Gala up against his old teammates as well. And it is LNG just muscling their way towards the Drake here. Tarzan moves in, but the Drake is taken and Tarzan chunked as well. Gala getting massive damage out in this fight. And Crisp is going to fall. This is huge for LNG. The series on the line for Weibo. Match point for LNG. They find the Drake, they find a pick, and they look to snowball for more. Gala getting in for the damage. And here comes Scout on his classic pick. Light pushed away, and Zika puts him into the dirt. Breathe. Finds one, and there's the damage from the Brand. Zika burns to pieces, and somehow Weibo have held on.
Weibo don't get the dragon setup they want, but they do get a bunch of kills. It is 2 for 2, but I think with Zucker and Scout being down, they'll take that trade, I guess, roll for roll. WeiWei, he will actually been spotted taking that because the Scuttle Crab gives off a little bit of a bloom. Spree doesn't have flash, though, so he'll make his way out to safety with the Blast Cone. LNG, I don't know how they're doing this around the dragon fights, but they've managed to take 2 back-to-back against Weibo, who've really dropped the ball when it comes to having this lead, having the Baron as well as part of that last dragon trade, and not being able to set up the map effectively to get themselves into a winning position. So let's go back to this again. Breathe comes in late. He's trying to take care of Zucker, but not having Breathe in the front line really hurts Weibo. Tarzan doesn't get himself big combo in the start of this. Breathe ends up getting caught out at the end of this too, weirdly. As I said, it's kind of like sticks around in the mid lane, doesn't get himself into a frontline position, he gets gunned down. I think if Scout hits this shuffle, might even be the game for LNG, but you're going into targets with flash. Sadly doesn't blow the flash from Xiaohu too if he looks for that later on. It just means the fight extends long enough for Tarzan to come back and start blasting away in the way that late game Brand does, baby.
I mean, look at that damage from Pyroclasm. Tarzan enough to turn it around. The all-out from Breathe, kind of making up for perhaps a bit of mispositioning at the start of the play. That is a very deep TP from Breathe. He's spotted. Everybody knows he's here. Xiaohu with a culling onto Gala. That'll get Breathe out. And it'll set up for a fight win for Weibo with Gala down. Chunked has to heal off for the Krugs.
WeiWei has no flash again. They can just take this.
Shot barrage in. Tarzan takes the Baron as WeiWei's caught out by Xiaohu. It's Weibo taking two, taking Baron, and looking to take the game.
Zucker's in the bot lane, but it doesn't matter. You've just lost the Baron. Yes, it's an objective ban here. Once again, LNG, without a flash on their jungler, playing for the red side. Baron, retake of the pit. Can't do anything. He can't get into the pit. Weibo find the smite easy as you like, and they get themselves a huge play here with the kill onto WeiWei and Hung. There's very little frontline. LNG can't defend the towers.
Zika with a classic tier 1 for game trade. It's a controversial strategy. We'll see if it plays out for him.
It works out.
LNG. With 2 members down, have to try and hold on. Weibo with 2 inhibitors down. Push to try and end the game. Xiaohu getting onto the towers. The 5 groups still paying dividends all these minutes later. Zika there to defend though. The Nexus tower surviving. Hung looking for an engaged Breathe, not the greatest target for him. Solar Flare dodged by Gala. True Shot Barrage clips 2, but it's not really enough.
That's not going to be the game at this point. Weibo needs to be careful on the retreat. Luckily, there's no one teleporting behind them, no wards to do so, but the Maokai ult might just start the fight anyway. It's too short. Breathe and Xiaohu now caught out on their own.
Hung's low, but there we go. Tower comes out. Zika has to dash away. He's low. He's not tanky enough. Has a GA, but is that going to be enough to save him? Weibo look to finish the job. The Chain of Corruptions early from Light, and Zika survives.
So, inhibs down in LNG's base, and Nexus turret hanging on to its just about foundations by that point. We now have a minute left of the Baron, a minute up until that Dragon. LNG have been winning the Dragon setup, if not the Dragon fights, but they've been losing the Baron fights. Baron's off the table now, Dragon's coming up. That might be a good omen for them, especially with Gala getting himself 4 items on the table too. Weibo, they'll reset, they'll take the fact that they have 2 inhibitors down, and maybe even look for a teleport from Xiaohu onto that Nexus if LNG misposition enough. We'll keep an eye out for that back door. It is gone into proper late game now. LNG will once again try and deny that soul, but it feels like it's so much harder than before with all the towers and inhibitors lost.
And I gotta say, the last couple of times I've not really favored LNG to get that Infernal Drake. They are on 2 Infernals at this point. It's gonna keep on stacking if they can find more of those objectives. Gala waits to try and dodge the Zenith Blade, but just gets hit by a Q, so that's his cleanse gone. There's his E, and Gala is screwed. What a pick by Chris. What a blunder by Gala.
LNG were desperate. They wanted to get towards the Dragon, but they leave Gala out of position. Well, Gala leaves himself out of position. With that, the last dying breath of the Baron buff. I think Weibo might have just brought us the Silver Scrapes.
We're going the distance today. That's the 3rd inhib down. Baron still just for 5 seconds, but 5 seconds might just be enough. Chain of Corruption on the backline, but Zhonya's keeps him alive. WeiWei trying to get into the backside themselves. Zika finds 1. Xiaohu down. Is it enough? Scout has to go huge. He has to carry. In goes Zika. Forces a GA. Tarzan still surviving on the backside. A Scout is here to finish the job. They might just hold on. LNG trying, but Breathe has had enough, and he'll make LNG take their very last breath. It's going to 5. Breathe has made sure of it as he hammers onto the Nexus, but here comes Gala. Is he tanky enough? Breathe down, Nexus alive. Wait,
Breathe no more. Minions to strike! Oh my god, the minions can't quite do it! They stay alive, but at what cost? 3 inhibs! This is now a PvE League of Legends!
Full on tower defense, call it Swarm at this point. Gala unlocked a new character, Ezreal's in Swarm. As he manages to hold on, tanking the supers, the Nexus is alive. LNG will not go quietly.
Holy crap, we are going right the way from all of these big team fights into the late game. There are teleports for LNG. Can they stop the soul coming over? This is such a low HP Nexus. I mean, Breathe does have teleport. He's not the best tower taker when he's not in his all-out form, of course. It does look like Weibo, they will get themselves Infernal Soul. Look, LNG, they do survive, but, I mean, they're missing, like, organs at this point. They've got smashed teeth, broken jaw, and LNG, they're against that Infernal Soul. I think that's going to be it all the same.
Broken teeth, they stumbled to their feet. I didn't hear no bells, says Scout, trying to hold on. Gala with that final kill. On to Breathe to save the game. My goodness, I can't believe LNG are still in this game. It does feel a little bit doomed for them as Xiaohu continues to put that pressure on. Infernal Soul now, in case the lead wasn't enough for Weibo. Gala, maybe he could be the one to save the day. He was the one that lost him that bot lane in him. He's getting some good poke down. Scout drops a tower as well.
Chris has Warmogs, but he's not in there just yet. Solarflame misses, as is the Zenith Blade. Here comes the Maokai.
Breathe isolated, but he's so tanky, and Hung's just going to go down. Scout dashes to safety, as trying to threaten onto the back line. It's big damage, but it's not enough to finish the kills. Tarzan dodges the Mystic shot. That could have been huge from Gala. He eats in and has to flash back out. Breathe tanking all the while as WeiWei falls, and Gala just can't finish his targets. Another Mystic shot, but it's not enough to finish off Xiaohu, and Weibo with 5 standing might just finish the job. Gala gets 1, Gala gets 2. Breathe onto the Nexus once again, but this time it's enough. Weibo go to 5.
3 times in a row has LNG versus Weibo gone the distance in the chase for the Silver Dragon Cup. In the lower bracket, we go to Silver Scrapes. LNG, they see themselves defend that Nexus over and over, but it is not quite enough. Weibo, they are not going quietly into the night.
They certainly are not. They will fight against the dying of the light, or rage against it. Damn, so close. Fantastic game coming out from
Weibo.
Weibo
Was
there.
they couldn't keep light dead there at LNG, so...
Yeah, I mean, look, messy game, and a valiant defense from LNG, but not enough ultimately, and it means we go to Silver Scrapes. We're going to head into a break and find out how this saga